I sat at the family dinner table, fork frozen halfway to my mouth, as my parents announced they had given my entire $50,000 college fund to my cousin Tyler. My Aunt Linda had convinced them Tyler deserved it more because he got into an Ivy League school. My state school didn't count, they said. What they didn't know was that I had been secretly running a 6-figure online business for 2 years. I had been quietly paying their mortgage for 6 months because my dad lost his job. Their ignorance was about to cost them everything. 2 years ago, when I started my freshman year at California State University, I launched something my parents never knew about. While they assumed I was just another college student struggling with textbooks and cafeteria food, I was building vintage Vixen finds from my dorm room. It started small. I would hit estate sales every Saturday morning, digging through boxes of old clothing that most people dismissed as junk. I saw treasure, designer pieces from the 70s and 80s, unique leather jackets, vintage band tees that collectors would pay serious money for. I photographed everything professionally, wrote detailed descriptions, and listed them on my own website and Instagram. The business grew faster than I ever imagined. What started as $200 a week became $1,000, then $2,000. By my sophomore year, I was making $8,000 monthly in pure profit. I hired 2 friends from school who needed income, paying them fair wages to help with packaging and shipping. My Instagram following grew to 42,000 people who loved the curated vintage aesthetic I created. I never told my parents. They had always dismissed my ideas, called them pipe dreams, told me to focus on getting a real job after graduation. My dad, Mark, worked in middle management at a tech company for 18 years until the layoffs hit last spring. One day, he came home with a cardboard box of desk supplies and a severance package that would last 6 months if we were careful. My mom, Susan, worked part-time at a dentist office, barely covering groceries and utilities. I watched them try to hide their panic, saw the stack of bills growing on the kitchen counter, noticed how they stopped going out to dinner, and started buying generic brands at the grocery store. 6 months ago, I was organizing inventory in my childhood bedroom when I saw it. A mortgage late payment notice on the kitchen counter, printed in red ink with threatening language about foreclosure proceedings. My parents were in the backyard, my mom crying while my dad held her, both of them trying to figure out how to keep the house. I made a decision that night. I researched how to pay someone else's mortgage anonymously, set up a system using cashier checks through a third-party service, and started covering their monthly payment. $2,100 every month, paid without them knowing, letting them believe Dad's severance was stretching further than expected. Now here we were 6 months later, and Aunt Linda sat at our dinner table looking smug and sanctimonious. Her husband, Uncle Paul, nodded along with everything she said, like a dashboard bobblehead. Tyler sat quietly between them, looking uncomfortable but undeniably entitled. Linda had been making her case for 20 minutes, her voice dripping with fake concern. Real education requires real investment, Linda said, reaching across the table to squeeze my mom's hand. Tyler got into Cornell. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Jenna's going to a state school. She can get student loans like everyone else. My mom actually nodded. My dad shifted in his seat but said nothing. We can't play favorites, my mom said, glancing at me with what she probably thought was apologetic but looked more like dismissive. We have to think about what's best for the family. Linda smiled, triumphant. You're doing the right thing, Susan. Tyler has real potential. This is an investment in his future. The words hung in the air. Real potential. As if I had none. As if my state school education was worthless. As if 4 years of their financial support entitled them to determine my worth. My dad pulled out an envelope, and I watched him hand my cousin a check. $50,000. My college fund, saved since I was born, given away at a dinner table like it was nothing. Tyler took it with a quiet thank you that somehow made it worse. Linda hugged my mom, praising her for being such a generous sister. Uncle Paul shook my dad's hand. I sat there, silent, calculating. I excused myself before dessert, went upstairs to my bedroom. Around me sat boxes of vintage inventory. My laptop open to my business dashboard, my phone buzzing with customer messages. I pulled up my business bank account, $73,000 saved. Pulled up my spreadsheet, tracking the mortgage payments. $12,000 I had paid toward their house over 6 months. They had no idea. None. I could hear them downstairs. Linda's voice carrying up through the vents. You've done so much for Jenna already. 18 years of support. Now it's Tyler's turn. You can't baby her forever. My mom's response was quieter, but I caught it. You're right. We can't play favorites. I sat on my bed, surrounded by the evidence of my success, and made another decision. I wouldn't tell them yet. I wanted to see how far this betrayal would go. I opened a new document on my laptop and started taking notes, documenting everything. Screenshots of tonight's date, the check, Linda's words. I had a feeling I would need this record. The next week, I discovered just how deep the manipulation ran. My mom posted on Facebook about their sacrifice, about choosing to help family even when it was hard, about the importance of investing in young people's futures. The post got 63 comments, all praising my parents for their generosity. Not one person mentioned me, asked how I felt, or questioned whether giving away your daughter's college fund was actually generous or just cruel. My mom's friends called her selfless. My dad's former coworkers said they were lucky to have such supportive family. I screenshot every single comment, but the real discovery came when I was looking for a document in my dad's home office. There, buried under insurance papers and old tax returns, I found something that made my blood run cold. Paperwork for a luxury apartment lease in Ithaca, New York. Tyler's name on it as the tenant. My parents' names on it as guarantors. $3,200 per month for 12 months. They had co-signed. If Tyler didn't pay, they were legally responsible. I kept digging, found credit card statements my mom kept in her desk drawer, charges from expensive furniture stores, an Apple store, a designer luggage company, $6,000 total, all on my mom's credit card, all for Tyler's dorm room and school supplies. My mom was making minimum payments, the interest piling up month after month. This wasn't a spontaneous decision made at dinner. This had been planned for months. I called my younger brother Danny. He was 16, still living at home, caught in the middle of everything. He answered on the second ring. Did you know about the apartment lease? I asked. Danny sighed. Aunt Linda has been coming over every week since March. I heard them talking about it. She kept saying Tyler needed support, that his future was more important. She said you weren't ambitious enough, that you wasted your potential by going to a state school. My hands clenched around my phone. What else did she say? She told Mom and Dad that you would be fine, that you could just get married and be taken care of. She said Tyler was going to be a lawyer, that investing in him was investing in the whole family's future. Danny paused. Jenna, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't think they would actually do it. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment near campus, the one-bedroom place I had rented and furnished entirely with my own money. My business was exploding. I had just finalized a partnership with a major vintage fashion influencer that would bring in an extra $4,000 a month. A boutique chain wanted to carry my curated pieces, a deal worth potentially $200,000 annually. I was on track to make $150,000 this year. I was 22 years old, and my parents had no idea. They thought I was their dependent daughter, scraping by on a part-time campus job. They thought I needed them. The truth was the exact opposite, and they were too blind to see it. I was keeping them afloat while they praised my cousin and dismissed my worth. I kept paying their mortgage, kept paying their utilities. $2,000 a month flowing from my account to theirs, anonymously, silently. I watched them stress about money while simultaneously committing to more expenses for Tyler. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. They couldn't afford their own bills, but they could guarantee a luxury apartment for my cousin. 3 weeks after that dinner, I ran into Tyler at a coffee shop near campus. He was with a group of friends, all of them laughing loudly at a corner table. I was sitting 2 tables away with my earbuds in, working on my laptop, when I heard his voice rise above the noise. My aunt and uncle are total suckers, Tyler said, and his friends laughed. My mom has them completely wrapped around her finger. She's been working them for months. I froze, pretending to focus on my screen while I slowly pulled out one earbud. They gave me $50,000, Tyler continued. Signed a lease for a sick apartment they're paying for. My mom convinced them my cousin doesn't need the money because she's just going to some state school. They actually believed her. One of his friends whistled. That's brutal for your cousin. Tyler shrugged. She's fine. Besides, my mom says she's not going anywhere anyway. Might as well invest in someone with actual potential. My hands shook. I pulled my phone from my pocket, opened the voice recording app, and set it on the table facing their direction. For the next 10 minutes, I captured everything. Tyler bragging about how easy it was to manipulate my parents, his plans to sublet the luxury apartment and pocket the difference, his mom's strategy of playing on my mother's guilt about being the successful sister, his casual dismissal of me as worthless. When they finally left, I had everything recorded. Clear audio, undeniable proof. I went home that night to find my parents hosting another dinner. Linda and Paul were there again. This time, Linda had an announcement. Tyler had gotten a prestigious summer internship in New York City. Unpaid, naturally, but such an amazing opportunity. He would need housing for 3 months. Could Susan and Mark help with rent? My mother said yes before Linda even finished asking. Of course. Whatever Tyler needs. My dad looked worried, opened his mouth like he wanted to object, then closed it again. He was drowning and still saying yes. I watched from the kitchen doorway. Linda caught my eye and smiled at me, sweet and poisonous. Jenna, honey, you understand, don't you? Tyler's opportunities are so important for all of us. Sure, I said flatly. Whatever helps the family. That night, I found my dad alone in his office, staring at bank statements on his computer screen. His face was gray with stress. I almost told him then, almost revealed everything, but something stopped me. I needed to see how far they would fall before I stepped in. I needed them to understand what they had done. The next day, I discovered something that changed everything. A letter from a mortgage company on the printer. My parents were applying for a cash-out refinance, trying to pull $50,000 in equity from the house. The application showed their plans clearly. $30,000 to Tyler for a graduate school fund, $20,000 to Linda for a family emergency. I researched Linda's so-called emergency. Her husband Paul was supposedly out of work, except his LinkedIn showed him actively employed at the same engineering firm he had worked at for 12 years. His Facebook had pictures from a golf tournament last weekend. No job loss. Linda was lying. The mortgage company's fraud department flagged the application. They noticed irregular payment patterns, large cashier check payments from an unknown source for 6 months. They thought it might be money laundering. They froze the refinancing pending investigation. They demanded an in-person meeting with my parents to explain the mystery payments. My parents panicked. They had no explanation because they didn't know about the payments. The bank insisted. The meeting was mandatory or they would report it to federal authorities. I got the call from my dad on a Tuesday afternoon. Jenna, we need you to come to the bank with us tomorrow. There's some kind of problem with the mortgage. They're asking about payments we didn't make. What payments? I asked, knowing exactly what payments. That's just it. We don't know. Someone's been paying our mortgage for months and we have no idea who. The next morning, I sat in a bank conference room with my parents and a fraud investigator named Mr. Patterson. He was stern, official, clearly suspicious. He laid out printed bank statements showing 6 months of cashier check payments, each for exactly $2,100. These payments came from an external source, Mr. Patterson said. We need to know where this money originated. If you can't provide a legitimate explanation, we're required to file a suspicious activity report. My parents looked genuinely confused and frightened. My mom kept saying they didn't know. My dad suggested maybe it was a bank error. Mr. Patterson was not convinced. I took a breath. It was me. 3 heads swiveled toward me. The payments were from me, I repeated. I've been paying their mortgage for 6 months. My dad's face went from gray to red. What are you talking about? Where would you get that kind of money? The accusation in his tone stung, like I must have done something illegal, like his daughter couldn't possibly be successful on her own. I pulled out my phone, opened my business banking app, turned the screen toward them. I run a business. Vintage Vixen Finds. I've been running it for 2 years. My mom stared at the screen, at the account balance. $73,000. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. I opened my website on my laptop, turned it so they could see. Professional photos, hundreds of items, thousands of followers. Pulled up my Instagram. 42,000 followers. Pulled up my monthly revenue reports. 8,000 in profit. Month after month after month. I've paid $12,000 toward your mortgage over the past 6 months, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion crushing my chest. I did it anonymously, because I knew you were struggling. I did it because you're my parents and I love you. The silence in that conference room was deafening. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. Well, that explains the payments, miss. We'll need you to provide documentation proving the source of funds, but if this is legitimate business income, there's no issue. I handed him a folder I had prepared. Tax returns, business registration, bank statements, everything official and legal. He reviewed them, nodded, and closed the file. You're clear, he said to my parents. Though I have to say, you're very fortunate to have a daughter like this. My parents didn't respond. We left the bank in silence. In the parking lot, my mom finally spoke. Why didn't you tell us? The question felt absurd. Tell you what? That I started a business you would have dismissed? That I was making more money than Dad did at his job? That I was supporting you while you gave away my future to Tyler? My dad looked like I had slapped him. We didn't know. You didn't ask. I shot back. You assumed I was struggling. You assumed I had nothing to offer. You assumed Tyler was worth investing in and I wasn't. My mom started crying. We thought we were helping family. I am family, I said, and my voice finally broke. I'm your daughter, and you chose everyone else over me. I got in my car and drove away, leaving them standing in the parking lot. That evening, Aunt Linda showed up at my parents' house. Somehow my mom had called her immediately. Linda swept in with her usual confidence, ready to smooth everything over. But this time, something was different in the air. So Jenna has a little online shop, Linda said dismissively. That's nice, Susan. But it doesn't change the fact that Tyler needs support. Online businesses are unstable. Tyler's education is a guaranteed investment. My dad, for the first time, spoke up. She's been paying our mortgage, Linda. For 6 months. She's made more money in 2 years than I made in my last job. Linda waved this away. Anyone can have a good streak. But Tyler is going to be a lawyer. That's real success. My mom, sitting on the couch looking shell-shocked, finally seemed to hear how Linda talked about me. Really hear it. Linda, she's been supporting us. Our daughter has been keeping us in our home while we gave her future away. Linda's smile tightened. You're being dramatic. Jenna will be fine. She's always been resourceful. Tyler needs this more. Get out, my dad said quietly. Linda blinked. What? Get out of our house. Now. Linda looked to Susan for support, but my mom just stared at her hands. Linda left, furious, slamming the door behind her. That night my parents called me. They apologized through tears. They said they had been blind, manipulated, foolish. They begged for forgiveness. I listened to it all. Then I said the hardest thing I had ever said. I can't do this right now. I need space. I need to figure out if I can trust you again. I hung up and cried for the first time since the dinner that started all of this. 2 weeks passed in tense silence. I focused on my business, which was ironically thriving despite my emotional turmoil. The boutique deal closed, bringing in a guaranteed $225,000 for the first year. A business podcast reached out wanting to interview me about building a 6-figure company while in college. I agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to tell my story on my own terms. Meanwhile, my parents were drowning. Without my anonymous support, reality hit them hard. Bills piled up. The mortgage payment came due, and they didn't have it. Credit card companies called. My dad took a part-time consulting gig that barely covered groceries. My mom picked up extra shifts at the dentist office, and Tyler started at Cornell. The calls came within the first week. Tyler needed money for textbooks, $800. Then fraternity rush fees, $1,200. Then furniture for his luxury apartment that my parents were already paying $3,200 a month for. Another $2,000. Linda called my mom daily with urgent requests. My mom, trapped in her own guilt and Linda's manipulation, kept saying yes. I heard all this from Danny, who called me crying one night. They can't afford any of it, Jenna. Dad looks sick. Mom isn't sleeping. But they keep sending Tyler money because Aunt Linda says they made a commitment. Where are they getting the money? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Credit cards. They're maxing out credit cards. I wanted to step in. Every instinct screamed at me to fix it. But I remembered their faces at that dinner table. Remembered my mom nodding along with Linda. Remembered my dad handing over that check without defending me. They made their choices. Now they had to live with them. The podcast interview happened on a Wednesday morning. The host, a woman named Sarah who had built her own successful business, was warm and insightful. She asked about my company, my process, my growth. Then she asked about my family. I hesitated for only a moment. Then I told the truth. I told the whole story. The college fund given to my cousin. The secret business I had built. The months of anonymous support while they dismissed my worth. I didn't use names, but I didn't soften the story either. Sarah was quiet for a long moment after I finished. How did that feel? She finally asked. Supporting them while they chose someone else, like drowning while watching someone else get the life raft, I said. Like being invisible in your own family. The episode released 3 days later. Within 24 hours, it had 500,000 downloads. By the end of the week, 2 million. Clips went viral across social media. Comments flooded in from people sharing their own stories of family betrayal, of being overlooked, of building success despite lack of support. My mom's coworkers heard it. My dad's former colleagues heard it. Everyone in their social circle heard it. Even though I hadn't used names, people who knew us recognized the story immediately. My phone exploded with calls. My parents called 17 times in one day. I didn't answer. Linda called, screaming threats about defamation lawsuits. I reminded her I hadn't used any names and hung up. Then my dad sent a text that stopped me cold. Please come home. We need to talk. It's important. I almost ignored it, but something in the simplicity of the message made me reconsider. That evening, I drove to their house. They looked terrible. My dad had lost weight, his face drawn and exhausted. My mom's eyes were red from crying. Danny sat on the couch between them, looking relieved to see me. We know you heard the podcast, my mom started. We know everyone heard it. I told the truth. I said, if you're embarrassed, that's not my fault. My dad shook his head. We're not here to blame you. We're here to tell you that you were right. About everything. They told me what happened after the podcast went viral. The shame they felt hearing their choices described in such stark terms. The realization of how deeply Linda had manipulated them. The shock of seeing clearly for the first time in months. But they told me something else too. Something that changed everything. A journalist had contacted them. An investigative reporter who specialized in financial fraud within families. The podcast had triggered something in her research. She asked permission to investigate Linda's history. My parents gave it. What the journalist found was staggering. Linda had been running similar schemes for 15 years. She had convinced my mom's parents to change their will before they died, leaving Linda a larger share. She had borrowed $60,000 from my dad's brother 5 years ago and never repaid it, destroying that relationship. She had systematically manipulated multiple family members out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Tyler had been aware, had been complicit, since he was 16 years old. The journalist found emails between Linda and Tyler discussing their targets, found Tyler's private social media showing a luxury lifestyle impossible on a student budget, found evidence that Tyler had helped forge documents for one of Linda's schemes. The article published in a major online outlet, it named Linda and Tyler directly, provided evidence, testimony from other victims, documentation of the financial manipulation. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Linda's husband Paul filed for divorce the same day, claiming he hadn't known the extent of her schemes. Tyler faced an ethics investigation at Cornell. The $50,000 college fund they had received was nearly gone, burned through in 7 months of reckless spending. My dad's brother, estranged for years, reached out and confirmed everything. Explained how Linda had driven a wedge between him and my dad. My parents sat in front of me, broken and humiliated, and told me all of it. We destroyed our relationship with you for a lie, my mom whispered. We chose a con artist over our own daughter. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt devastated that it had come to this. Then my dad told me one more thing. We found more paperwork. Linda was executor of your grandmother's estate. The estate was worth $300,000. Supposed to be split between Linda and your mom. Linda told us there was only $50,000 total. She gave us $25 and kept $25. She embezzled $250,000 of your inheritance. I stared at him. What? My mom was crying again. My own sister stole from me. From us. And we let her manipulate us into hurting you. The weight of it all crashed down. This wasn't just about a college fund. This was years of systematic abuse, manipulation, and theft. And my parents had been victims too, even as they victimized me. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. We filed a police report, my dad said. For the embezzlement. Our lawyer says it's a clear case of fraud. Linda could face criminal charges. I nodded slowly. Justice was coming. But it felt hollow. Justice didn't undo the damage. My parents looked at me with desperate hope. Is there any way you can forgive us? I looked at them. Really looked at them. They were smaller than I remembered. Broken. Humbled. Human. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But I'm willing to try. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind. The story exploded beyond anything I could have imagined. Linda and Tyler were arrested, charged with fraud and embezzlement. The evidence was overwhelming. Linda's pattern of manipulation documented across 15 years. Tyler's willing participation in multiple schemes, the stolen inheritance, the forged documents. My business hit heights I never dreamed of. The publicity from the podcast and the subsequent news coverage brought in orders faster than we could fulfill them. I hired 4 more employees. Monthly profit jumped to $20,000. Investors reached out wanting to help scale the company nationally. I got offered a book deal to tell my full story. But emotionally, I was exhausted. Success felt empty without family to share it with. Linda and Tyler both made bail. Within days, they showed up at my parents' house. I wasn't there, but Danny recorded the whole thing and sent it to me that night. Linda looked haggard, desperate. Tyler looked angry. They wanted to come inside. My dad refused. You don't get to show up and demand anything from us, my dad said, his voice stronger than I had heard it in months. Linda started crying. The same manipulation tactics she had always used. I made mistakes. I want to make amends. I'm your sister, Susan. My mom stepped forward, standing next to my dad. You stole from me. From my mother. You manipulated us into hurting our daughter. You used our love against us. Family is supposed to forgive. Linda tried. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, my dad said. Chosen bonds are stronger than birth. You chose to betray us. We choose to protect ourselves, Tyler tried to speak. Aunt Susan, I was young, I didn't understand. My mom cut him off. You're 19 years old. You understood perfectly. You bragged about it to your friends. We heard the recording. Linda's face went from desperate to furious in seconds. Fine. You want to be that way? We'll see what a jury thinks. Tyler, frustrated and angry, made a fatal mistake. Everyone froze. Linda tried to shut him up, but it was too late. My dad's voice went cold. What money? Tyler realized his error, but couldn't take it back. The full story came out right there on the doorstep. Linda had been executor of my grandmother's estate 3 years ago. The estate was worth $300,000. Linda told my mom it was only $50,000, gave her $25,000, and kept the rest. $250,000, embezzled from her own mother's estate. My mom collapsed against the doorframe. The ultimate betrayal. Linda had stolen from their dying mother. My parents called the police, called their lawyer. That night, additional charges were filed: elder abuse, grand theft. The evidence was documented in estate records Linda thought no one would ever check. The case went to trial. Linda pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, and elder abuse. The prosecutor pushed for maximum sentencing. Linda got 3 years in prison and was ordered to repay $250,000. Tyler pleaded guilty to accessory charges, got 2 years probation and community service. Both had criminal records that would follow them forever. My mom received a settlement of $185,000 in recovered funds. Her first act was to split part of it with my dad's brother, repaying the $60,000 debt that Linda had created. Family relationships began healing across multiple branches, but Tyler wasn't done causing damage. Cornell expelled him after the criminal conviction. He lost his housing, his future, everything. With Linda in prison and Paul divorcing her, Tyler had nowhere to go. He showed up at my parents' house with all his belongings. My dad was at work. My mom was home alone. Tyler pushed his way inside, moved his stuff into my old bedroom, and declared he was staying. When my mom protested, he laughed. "You promised to support my education. You owe me." My mom called my dad, who came home immediately. Tyler had made himself comfortable, acting like he owned the place. My dad recorded Tyler on his phone without Tyler knowing, caught Tyler talking to a friend on video chat, saying my parents were stupid and easy to manipulate, saying he just needed a free place to crash until he figured out his next scam, laughing about how pathetic they were. My dad walked into the room, phone in hand. "Get out," Tyler sneered. "You can't kick me out. I have nowhere to go. Not my problem." My dad physically started moving Tyler's belongings outside. Tyler called Linda, but she was in prison and couldn't answer. Called Paul, who said Tyler made his own choices and hung up. Tyler left, screaming threats about lawsuits that made no legal sense. The house was finally quiet. My parents called me that night, told me everything, sent me the recording of Tyler's admission. They were sobbing. "We almost lost everything for that," my mom said. "We almost lost you." They drove to my apartment, showed up unannounced, both of them crying. They apologized, not with excuses but with genuine remorse. They showed me the recordings, explained their awakening, begged for forgiveness. I listened, really listened, saw their broken hearts, their genuine transformation. "Sorry isn't enough," I said calmly. "I need to see change. Real change." I laid out conditions: family therapy, all of us together, public acknowledgement to the extended family of what happened, complete cutoff from Linda, respect for my boundaries and my business. Most importantly, rebuilding trust slowly, on my timeline. They agreed to everything without hesitation. Then I told them about the foreclosure notice Danny had shown me. They were facing losing the house. Without my support, they couldn't keep up. I made a business decision. I offered to buy the house from them, pay off the mortgage completely. They could live there rent-free for now, but the house would be mine. It protected my investment and gave Danny stability. They were shocked but agreed. The power dynamic had completely shifted. They were living in their daughter's house, the daughter they had dismissed. Papers were signed. The house became mine. We scheduled our first therapy session. I looked at my parents and saw them differently. Smaller, humbled, human, but maybe finally honest. 6 months of therapy changed everything. Not quickly, not easily, but deeply. Every Tuesday evening, we sat in Dr. Morrison's office and did the hard work of rebuilding trust. My parents faced their own issues. My mom worked through childhood trauma that made her desperate for approval, especially from Linda. My dad confronted toxic masculinity that made my success threatening to his identity. I processed my hurt and learned to set boundaries without walls. My business exploded during this time. Vintage Vixen finds got featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 for retail. The article called me a retail prodigy, detailed how I built a 7-figure company from a dorm room. My annual revenue hit $540,000. I employed 12 people, opened a physical boutique in downtown Sacramento. My personal income was $270,000 a year. I was 23 years old. The media attention was overwhelming. Good Morning America invited me on. The Today Show wanted an interview. Vogue did a feature on vintage fashion and my business was the centerpiece. I did a TED Talk called Building Your Own Table When You're Not Given a Seat. It got 50 million views in 3 months. With success came responsibility. I created a scholarship fund for students from unsupportive families. First year, I gave away $100,000 split between 10 students. Each recipient got $10,000 and access to mentorship from successful entrepreneurs. I named it after my grandmother, the Susan Marie Scholarship for Independent Dreamers. When I told my mom the name, she cried for an hour. My mom had changed in visible ways. She went back to school, getting a degree in social work. She wanted to help families navigate manipulation and financial abuse. She volunteered at my boutique twice a week, not for money but to understand my world. She learned about vintage fashion, about business operations, about my passion. She was trying to know me, really know me, for the first time. My dad found a better job than his old one, but more importantly, he found purpose. He volunteered with my scholarship foundation, mentoring young men on healthy masculinity and supporting ambitious daughters. He kept the Forbes article about me on his desk, told everyone about my business with genuine pride. Danny thrived. He worked part-time at my boutique, learning business while finishing high school. He wanted to study entrepreneurship, follow in my footsteps. I guided him as he started his own small online business selling refurbished electronics. Family dinners became real again. Honest conversations, laughter, apologies when needed, space when needed. It wasn't the family I was born into, but it was becoming the family we chose to build. My mom did something brave. She wrote a blog post that went viral, How I Almost Lost My Daughter by Listening to a Manipulator. She detailed every mistake without excusing them, explained Linda's tactics as a warning to others, described the therapy work she was doing, ended with, I'm grateful my daughter is giving me a chance to be better. Thousands of parents commented. Many admitted similar mistakes. My mom's vulnerability helped people. Then, on a random Thursday in October, Linda came back. I was at my parents' house for dinner when the doorbell rang. My dad opened it. Linda stood there, looking thinner and harder. Prison had changed her appearance, but apparently not her tactics. Tyler was behind her, looking sullen. I've served my time, Linda said. I want to make amends. My dad's voice was firm. No. Linda's eyes filled with tears. The same manipulation. I made mistakes. I want my family back. I'm your sister, Susan. My mom appeared beside my dad. For a moment, I saw her waver. Years of conditioning, of being the peacemaker, of seeking Linda's approval. Then my mom straightened her spine. You stole from our dying mother. You manipulated us into hurting our child. You spent 15 years lying to us. Family forgives, Linda tried. Family doesn't abuse, my mom countered. You taught me that the hard way. Tyler spoke up, trying a new angle. Aunt Susan, I've changed. Prison changed me. I want to apologize to Jenna. I stepped into view. I don't accept. Tyler's mask slipped for just a second, anger flashing across his face, long enough for everyone to see he hadn't changed at all. We wouldn't even need to be here if... Tyler started, then caught himself. But my dad was recording. If what, Tyler? Tyler shut his mouth. But Linda, desperate and cornered, made a mistake. If Tyler hadn't mentioned the estate money that day, we had it all under control. The admission hung in the air. Even now, Linda thought she could manipulate her way back in. My mom closed the door in her sister's face. We stood in the entryway, breathing hard. My mom turned to me. I chose you. I will always choose you now. I hugged her. Really hugged her. For the first time in a year, I felt like I had my mom back. But we weren't done. The lawyer called the next day. Turned out Linda's restitution payments weren't coming. She had hidden assets that the court needed to find. More legal battles ahead. More exposure of Linda's schemes. Investigation revealed she had manipulated even more people than we knew. The family rallied together this time. My dad's brother came to dinner for the first time in 5 years. My mom's estranged sister visited, and they cried and healed old wounds. Extended family members came forward with their own Linda stories. We weren't alone in this. Linda had hurt dozens of people over decades. We decided to pursue every legal avenue, not for revenge, but for justice. So Linda couldn't do this to anyone else. Community response was overwhelming. Our local news covered the story. Linda and Tyler became cautionary tales. My business got more support. People wanted to invest in someone who had overcome family betrayal. Orders flooded in. I had to hire 6 more employees. Success was sweet, but nothing compared to sitting at family dinner and feeling safe, feeling valued, feeling seen. My dad pulled me aside after dinner one night. I need to tell you something I never said properly. I was threatened by your success. As a man, as your father, I felt like I should be the provider. When you were providing, it wounded my ego. That's my issue, not yours. I'm proud of you. So incredibly proud. I saw my dad cry for only the second time in my life. Thanks, Dad. He hugged me. You saved this family. Not just financially. You saved us from ourselves. 1 year after Linda's arrest, life had settled into something I never expected. Peace. Linda was in prison, halfway through her 3-year sentence. Tyler was working a minimum wage job, trying to rebuild his life under the weight of a criminal record and destroyed reputation. My parents had done the work, real work, to change. But the biggest change was in me. I had learned that success without people to share it with was hollow, but that not everyone deserved a seat at my table. I had learned to forgive without forgetting, to love with boundaries, to trust but verify. Vintage Vixen finds had become something beyond my wildest dreams. Annual revenue hit $2.3 million. My personal income was $800,000. I opened 3 boutique locations across California, launched my own vintage-inspired clothing line that major retailers wanted to carry. I was 23 years old and had built an empire. Forbes did a follow-up feature. Vogue called me a retail visionary. Good Morning America had me back to discuss my new clothing line. I published a book, Vintage Success: Building Your Dream Without Permission. It became a bestseller, spent 12 weeks on the New York Times list. The Scholarship Foundation grew beyond anything I imagined. We now gave away $500,000 annually, supporting 50 students whose families didn't support their dreams. We provided mentorship, community, resources. Every recipient had a story like mine. Family betrayal, dismissal, obstacles, and every single one was thriving despite it all. I bought a house. Not just any house, but a beautiful 4-bedroom Craftsman in a historic Sacramento neighborhood. Renovated it myself, furnished it with vintage pieces from my business. It was mine, built with money I earned, filled with things I loved. My parents visited often. Our relationship was different now, built on respect instead of obligation, on honesty instead of assumption. My mom had graduated with her social work degree, was working at a nonprofit helping families navigate financial abuse. My dad had become a vocal advocate for supporting daughters in business, speaking at local schools and community centers. Danny was thriving, senior year of high school, already accepted to business school with a full scholarship. His electronics refurbishing business was making $3,000 a month. I guided him, taught him everything I learned. Watching him succeed was almost as satisfying as my own success. One evening in November, I hosted a dinner party. Not just family, but the family we chose. My parents and Danny. My dad's brother and his family. Relationship fully restored. My mom's sister, who Linda had also victimized, now close with my mom again. Several scholarship recipients who had become friends. My boutique manager and her wife. My lawyer who helped us through the Linda situation. 20 people around my dining room table. Laughter, good food, real conversation. My mom had cooked my grandmother's recipes. My dad gave a toast to Jenna, who taught us that real strength is building your own path, and that real family shows up even when it's hard. Everyone raised their glasses. I looked around the table and felt something I hadn't felt in years: belonging. After dinner, my mom and I washed dishes together. She scrubbed, I dried. Comfortable silence between us. I think about that dinner a lot, my mom said quietly. When we gave away your fund, I replay it in my mind. Wish I could go back. I used to wish that too, I admitted. But if it hadn't happened, I might not have pushed so hard. I might not have built what I built. You would have succeeded anyway. You're remarkable. Maybe. But I wouldn't have learned what I learned. About myself, about family, about who I want to be. My mom set down the dish she was washing. I failed you so badly. You did. But you're here now. You did the work. You changed. That's what matters. We hugged, both of us crying. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were harder than others. but we were moving forward together. My dad found me on the porch later, looking at the stars. He sat beside me in silence for a moment. "I need to say something," he started. "I was threatened by your success. As a man, as your father, I thought I was supposed to be the provider. When you were providing, especially after I lost my job, it wounded my ego. I let that wound turn into resentment. I let it blind me to who you really are. Dad, let me finish. That was my failing. My insecurity. My outdated ideas about masculinity and fatherhood. Not your fault. Never your fault. I'm proud of you. More proud than I've ever been of anything in my life." I saw tears on my dad's face. "Thanks, Dad. That means everything. You saved this family, Jenna. Not just financially. You saved us from ourselves. From Linda's manipulation. Yes, but also from our own blindness, our own ego, our own failure to see what was right in front of us. We sat together, watching the stars, and I felt truly forgiven and truly forgiving. Danny caught me before he left that night. Can I talk to you for a minute?" We stepped into my home office. He looked serious. "I know I was just a kid watching all this happen. But I learned something important from you." "What's that?" "You showed me you can love your family and still have boundaries. You can be hurt and still be kind. You can succeed even when people doubt you. You didn't let their mistakes define you, but you also didn't let them off the hook until they changed." I felt tears threatening again. "You're going to do amazing things, Danny, because I have the best role model." After everyone left, I sat in my living room with my dog, a rescue named Pepper I had adopted 6 months ago. The house was quiet. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through messages from scholarship recipients. One wrote, "You gave me hope when my family gave up on me." Another, "Am graduating debt-free because of you." My pain had purpose. That realization settled over me like a warm blanket. I opened my laptop and started recording a video for social media. I had 3 million followers now across platforms. People who followed my story, my business, my journey. A lot of you know my story. I started looking into the camera. The betrayal, the business, the reconciliation. People ask me if I regret what happened, if I wish it never occurred. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Here is the truth. I wish it hadn't hurt so much, but I don't regret who I became. When people underestimate you, you have 2 choices: prove them right or prove them wrong. I chose to prove them wrong, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. I felt the words flowing, honest and real. Your worth isn't determined by who believes in you. It's determined by what you believe about yourself. My parents gave away my college fund. I built an empire anyway, not because I had to prove something to them, because I had something to prove to myself. I took a breath. But here's the part that surprised me. Success wasn't enough. Money wasn't enough. Vindication wasn't enough. What I really wanted was my family. A real family, built on truth and respect. I got that, but only after I set boundaries. Only after I demanded better. The camera felt like a confessional. Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It means choosing peace after someone has changed. My parents changed. They did the work. They earned forgiveness. That's the difference between reconciliation and enabling. I felt the weight of the message. Love your family, but love yourself more. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give your family is showing them who you really are, even if they can't see it at first. Especially if they can't see it at first. I ended the recording and posted it. Within an hour, it had 1 million views. Thousands of comments from people sharing their own stories. I read them, responded to several, felt the connection with strangers who understood. My phone rang. "My mom, I just watched your video. I'm so proud of you." We talked for an hour. Easy conversation about business, family, life, dreams, the kind of conversation I always wanted with my mom. When we hung up, I smiled. Tomorrow was full of possibility. New deals to negotiate, employees to mentor, dreams to build, but also family dinner on Sunday, therapy on Tuesday, coffee with Danny on Wednesday. Balance. Finally. I had built a life where success and family coexisted. where I didn't have to choose between ambition and love, where I was seen, valued, respected, not because I demanded it through anger, but because I demonstrated my worth through action and gave people I loved the chance to rise and meet me there. Some did, some didn't. Both outcomes taught me something valuable. I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, and headed to bed. Pepper followed me, curling up at the foot of the bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new growth. But tonight, I was at peace. 1 year later, everything had changed in ways I never imagined. Linda was released from prison after serving her full sentence. She moved to another state, cut off from everyone. Tyler was working in retail, living with roommates, trying to rebuild a life destroyed by his own choices. Neither tried to contact us again. That chapter was truly closed. My business had grown beyond even my revised dreams. Vintage Vixen Finds was now a household name in fashion circles. Annual revenue hit $5.2 million. I employed 38 people across 4 states. Major retailers carried my vintage-inspired clothing line nationally. My personal income was $1.4 million. At 24 years old, I was a self-made millionaire many times over. But numbers didn't tell the real story. The real story was the life I had built. The scholarship foundation became my greatest pride. We had given away over $2 million to 200 students in 3 years, created a network of young entrepreneurs who supported each other. 92% of our recipients graduated debt-free. 87% started their own businesses within 5 years. We weren't just funding education. We were building a movement. I published my second book, A Practical Guide to Entrepreneurship. It debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, did a national book tour, spoke at colleges and conferences, started a podcast interviewing other entrepreneurs who overcame family obstacles. My parents flourished in ways that surprised everyone, including themselves. My mom had become a respected advocate for financial abuse survivors. She spoke at conferences, trained social workers, helped pass legislation protecting elderly people from exploitation. Her vulnerability about her own manipulation helped thousands of people recognize similar patterns in their lives. My dad found his calling mentoring young men on emotional intelligence and supporting women in business. He volunteered at high schools, taught workshops on healthy masculinity, wrote articles for parenting magazines. The man who had been threatened by my success became my biggest champion. Danny graduated high school as valedictorian, got accepted to every business school he applied to. His electronics business was making $10,000 monthly. He decided to take a gap year to scale it before college, following my advice. We were business partners now, launching a joint venture that combined vintage aesthetics with refurbished technology. Our family had grown in chosen ways. My dad's brother was at every holiday. My mom's sister became her best friend. We integrated scholarship recipients into family celebrations, creating a network of people who understood what it meant to build yourself from scratch. One evening in March, I hosted our annual scholarship gala, 400 people in a downtown Sacramento ballroom. Past and present recipients, donors, supporters, family. My parents sat at the head table, pride radiating from them. I gave the keynote speech, looking out at faces I had come to know and love. 3 years ago, my parents gave my college fund to my cousin. I was devastated, angry, hurt beyond measure. I felt invisible in my own family. The room was silent. But I made a choice. I chose to build anyway, to succeed anyway, to prove my worth to myself, not to them. I started a business that grew beyond my wildest expectations. And then I made another choice. I chose forgiveness after change. I chose family after accountability. I chose love after boundaries. I saw my mom crying in the front row. The money they gave away was $50,000. This foundation has now given away over $2 million. The education they didn't fund, I funded myself and graduated debt-free. The respect they didn't give, I commanded through excellence. Applause began, but I held up my hand. But here's what I want you to understand. Success is not revenge. Success is freedom. Freedom to choose who you become. Freedom to choose who deserves space in your life. Freedom to choose grace when people change and boundaries when they don't. I looked directly at my parents. My parents made terrible mistakes. They hurt me deeply. But they did something rare. They admitted fault. They changed. They did years of hard work to understand their failures. They earned their way back into my life. That's the model. Not automatic forgiveness for blood relation, but earned trust through changed behavior. My dad was crying now too. To everyone here who has been dismissed by family, underestimated by people who should support you, hurt by those who should protect you, hear this. Their failure to see your worth does not diminish your worth. Build anyway. Succeed anyway. Become who you're meant to be anyway. And then, if they change, if they truly change, you can choose forgiveness. But never choose it before change. Never choose it without boundaries. Never choose it at the expense of yourself. The room erupted in applause, a standing ovation that lasted 3 minutes. After the gala, my family gathered at my house. My parents, Danny, my uncle and his family, my aunt, several scholarship recipients who had become like siblings. We sat in my backyard under string lights, eating dessert and sharing stories. My mom pulled me aside. That speech, thank you for acknowledging that we changed. You did. That's important. I know I apologize all the time, but I don't think I can ever apologize enough for what we did. I took her hand. Mom, at some point the apologies have to stop and the new relationship has to begin. We're there. We've been there for a while. She hugged me tight. I love you so much. I'm so proud of who you are. I love you too. My dad joined us. Group hug. We laughed and pulled him in. 3 people who had nearly destroyed their relationship, now closer than ever. Not despite the pain, but because of what we learned from it. Danny found me later, sitting by the fire pit. Big sister moment. I made room for him. Always. I got accepted to Stanford Business School. Full ride. I screamed and hugged him. Danny, that's incredible. I'm deferring for 2 years. Going to scale the business first, like you advised. Smart. I learned from the best. He paused. Jenna, I know I say this a lot, but you changed our whole family. You could have walked away forever. No one would have blamed you, but you gave them a chance to be better. That took more strength than building your business. They earned it. Still, you're the most forgiving person I know, and the strongest. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire. Later, I went inside to find my parents doing dishes in my kitchen, a scene that would have been unimaginable 3 years ago. They moved around each other with easy familiarity, laughing about something. Need help? I asked. We've got it, my dad said. You hosted. We clean. I leaned against the counter, watching them. My mom washed, my dad dried. They looked happy, healthy, whole. Can I tell you something? I said. They both turned. I forgive you, fully, completely. I'm not holding on to it anymore. My mom's hands stilled in the soapy water. Really? Really? You've shown me through years of action that you've changed. You've earned trust back. I'm not keeping score anymore. We're family, real family, the kind that chooses each other every day. My dad set down the dish towel and crossed to hug me. My mom joined, water dripping from her hands. We stood there, the 3 of us, holding each other and crying happy tears. Thank you, my mom whispered. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for not giving up on yourselves. That night, after everyone left, I did what I always did. Sat down to record content for my followers. 3.8 million people now followed my journey. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like closure. I want to tell you how this story ends. I started looking into the camera. My parents gave away my college fund. That's how it started. But here's how it ends. I built a multi-million-dollar business. I created a scholarship foundation that has changed hundreds of lives. I published 2 best-selling books. I have a family I love and trust. I have success that I built myself. And I have peace. I smiled. The betrayal that almost destroyed me became the catalyst that made me. Not because betrayal is good, but because I chose to respond with excellence instead of bitterness. I chose to build instead of break. I chose to demand better instead of accepting less. I felt the truth of the words. My parents gave away $50,000. I've given away $2 million. They dismissed my potential. I exceeded everyone's expectations, including my own. They chose someone else over me. I chose myself first, and then chose to let them earn their way back. I paused, letting the message land. That's the lesson. Choose yourself first. Build your worth on your own foundation, not on someone else's opinion. Demand change before forgiveness. Set boundaries before reconciliation. Love yourself enough to walk away if people won't grow, and love others enough to celebrate when they do. I thought about everything that had happened. All the pain, all the growth, all the triumph. Success tastes sweeter when shared with people who genuinely celebrate you. But you have to build the success first, with or without their support. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the freedom to succeed despite those who doubt you. I felt tears but kept going. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give your family is the chance to witness who you become when you refuse to shrink. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, but boundaries guarantee respect. Build your empire, demand better, and never, ever apologize for outgrowing the limits others tried to place on you. I ended the recording and posted it. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of comments within minutes. People sharing their own stories, their own transformations, their own choices to build despite opposition. I read them, feeling connected to strangers who understood. One comment stood out. You taught me that forgiveness is possible after change, but change has to come first. That changed my life. That was exactly what I hoped people would understand. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Just watched your video. Thank you for showing the world that people can change. That mistakes don't have to be permanent. That families can heal. I love you. I texted back, I love you too, Mom. Another text from my dad, proudest father in the world. Thank you for giving us a chance to be better. And from Danny, my sister, the legend. Can't wait to build empires together. I sat in my living room, Pepper curled up beside me, and felt complete, not because everything was perfect, not because the pain never happened, but because I had turned pain into purpose, betrayal into triumph, hurt into healing. I opened my planner for tomorrow. Business meetings, employee reviews, scholarship interviews, family dinner, coffee with Danny, a full life, balanced and intentional. The girl who sat at that dinner table 3 years ago, watching her parents give away her future, would be amazed by who I became. Not just by the business success, or the money, or the recognition, but by the strength to set boundaries, the courage to demand better, the wisdom to forgive after change, and the peace that came from knowing my worth was never dependent on their belief in me. I built my own table, set my own standards, created my own family of people who chose to show up with respect and love. And I did it all while keeping the door open for the people who hurt me to become better, without compromising myself in the process. That was the real success story. Not the millions of dollars or the business empire or the best-selling books. The real success was becoming someone I was proud to be. Someone who could be hurt deeply and still choose grace. Someone who could be dismissed and still choose excellence. Someone who could be betrayed and still choose love, but only after boundaries were respected and change was demonstrated. I was 24 years old. I had built an empire, healed a family, and created a legacy that would outlive me. The scholarship recipients would go on to help others. The businesses they built would employ thousands. The lessons they learned would pass to their children. My parents gave away my college fund. I gave away millions. They underestimated me. I exceeded every expectation. They chose someone else. I chose myself, and then chose to let them earn their way back. And in the end, everyone who did the work got a seat at the table I built. That's how this story ends. Not with revenge, but with triumph. Not with bitterness, but with peace. Not with broken relationships, but with rebuilt family. Not with limits, but with limitless possibility. I turned off the lights and headed to bed. Tomorrow would bring new dreams to chase, new people to help, new family moments to cherish. But tonight, I was exactly where I needed to be. At peace with my past, proud of my present, excited for my future. I had turned my parents' biggest mistake into my greatest motivation, and that made all the difference. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated by the people who should have supported you most? How did you respond? Did you let it break you, or did you let it build you? Drop your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's going through the same thing right now. If this story resonated with you, if it gave you hope or strength or a new perspective, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and realize they're not alone in their struggles. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I share stories like this every week, stories about overcoming betrayal, building success despite opposition, and finding peace after pain. This community is growing because people like you understand that our struggles don't define us, our responses do. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been dismissed, underestimated, or hurt by family. Someone who needs to know that their worth isn't determined by other people's opinions. Someone who needs permission to choose themselves first. Thank you for being part of this journey. Thank you for listening to my story and sharing your own. Thank you for understanding that forgiveness is possible after change, that success is sweeter after struggle, and that families can heal when people are willing to do the work. I'm sending you strength, peace, and the courage to build your own table. You deserve a seat. You deserve respect. You deserve people who celebrate you, not diminish you. And if you don't have that right now, build it yourself. I promise you, it's worth it. Until next time, remember, your worth is not up for debate. Build anyway. Succeed anyway. Become who you're meant to be anyway. The right people will rise to meet you there. Take care of yourselves. Choose yourself first. Demand better. And never apologize for outgrowing the limits others tried to place on you.